I was muted. Forgot to unmute myself, but I turned my camera on. So again, hi there. Welcome to my channel. Welcome to today's live. And if you are new here and you've never been on this channel before, you might be watching the replay because we just started. Then hello, welcome. We do talk all things true crime. We talk different cases each day. Usually we're stuck on the Idaho 4 case, but today we have a different case to talk about. So I figured I would come on live. There wasn't anything really to do. So I was like, if I'm not doing anything, maybe everybody else isn't doing anything. And we can all do, something together. So if you are a returning Titan, welcome on back. If you have not joined our membership and you would like to, the link is in the chat and I will put it in the chat again. For the people that are watching on replay, I appreciate you guys all being here. We'll give it a couple minutes to get some people kind of in here, get the likes kind of up a little bit. Maybe we'll get into the algorithm, who knows. And then we will start the live. Well, thank you, Summer. Well, you probably look fantastic too. I love the compliment. Just took a shower. Took a shower, ran the dogs out because my hair was wet. Now it's completely dry. It's amazing. It's amazing. But I did see that we had some people in here. Hi, Scorpelina. Hi. I saw that you said hi to me earlier. I saw that Summer, Isabel, and Teresa were the first people in here, and that's so funny because normally it doesn't happen like that. Actually, wait a minute. Where's Eddie? That's the difference. That's the difference right there. Usually Eddie slips in between you guys. So, and hello, Janet, and hello, everybody. Thank you guys for being here. I really appreciate it so much. So basically, if you guys haven't been able to watch any of my other pre-recorded videos on any of this, on this case, let me know. And if you could watch any of my pre-recorded videos, that would be great because it sends it into the algorithm. More people will see them. But today, basically, we're going to be going back. We went over this. Let me see, actually, if I can go back and tell you exactly when we were, the last time we talked about this. Wow, it's been a little while. June 7th, we went over this case. I think we did a 2-hour live. I did a full timeline of events starting back from 2015 to 2017 up until the present. And we got all kind of caught up with what was going on with her. But if you don't know what we're talking about, I'll give you a little summary of everything that's going on. But Kouri Richins is charged with the murder of her husband, Eric Richins. She is accused of fatally poisoning Eric with fentanyl. She served it in a Moscow Mule drink after they were celebrating a closing of a house. That was a $3 million home. So basically, the fentanyl came from a dealer by the name of CL. So you'll hear those initials throughout this case a lot. The couple shared shared 3 boys together, all under the age of 10. She wrote a children's book about the whole ordeal about grieving, a 41-page children's book over the loss and grief. It's a lot. So the couple had a lot of assets together, and we think that's what her motive was. There was a $3 million house that was unfurnished. It was unfinished. I'll show you the house too, because I have some pictures of the house. So this here, let me see if it's up. Nope. This here is the house. It's just like a further away shot. And then I'll get you some more. And the people that we're talking about today, let me put that on here first. This is going to be Eric Richins and his wife, Kouri Richins. And then this is the book that she ended up writing, Are You With Me? Which it's been taken down off of Amazon's book club. So we'll go back and I'll show you the houses, or the house. So this is one of the 2 on the property here. It was a huge home that they were going to build. But that's some of the backstory. But I have a complete timeline on my on my playlist under Kouri Richins. It was only one live, but we did it 2 hours. So if you want to check that out and get more backstory, that's where it's at. Also, before we get started with the video, I wanted to ask you guys, which I think everybody will be ready for Delphi case. I thought about doing a live over the Delphi case here within the next couple of days. That way, because he'll be going to court June 15th. So these are just pictures of the house there that I wanted to show you. Hello, Lionel. How are you? Then Ghost Rider, yeah. I wonder who wrote the book. Like 41 pages? 41? I've been through a lot of grief, and I don't even know if I could be doing 41 pages. That's a lot. Let me see, where are we at? So I didn't realize that she was going to court today, and I was watching, YouTube, and I was like, oh my gosh, she's in court right now. So that's why I was like, jumped on really quick so we could watch her court hearing. It's about an hour long, and this was for her. This was for her for a bail hearing today. So let me get this rewound. She looks a lot different. I will say that. The courthouse is full. Like, now, I'm wondering, is this because, are these all people for her? Like, that's crazy. I've never seen, I haven't seen a courtroom this full for a bail hearing before. That's why I'm like, it's different. All the children's books have a couple lines a page. Yeah, maybe, hopefully you'll get something, Fred. They'll be coming back for summer break. Wow. So these are her attorneys. That's her in the white. Probably looking pure. I don't know. But we'll go ahead and get started on this. If you guys haven't liked the video, just don't forget to like it. Also, don't forget, if you want to join our membership, it's in the chat, and I will put it back in there for you guys. And I do appreciate everybody being here today. It really, really does mean a lot.
Good morning, Detective O'Driscoll. Can you please introduce yourself to the court and explain your relation to this case?
My name is Detective O'Driscoll. I've been with the Summit County Sheriff's Office for 7 years. I'm assigned to the Investigations Division. I was assigned to be the lead detective in this case.
Actually, if you guys haven't watched this, let me give you just a little bit of backstory on this. So basically they have like detectives, and they're going to go over like the reason, like the probable cause and stuff, kind of like why she's been arrested and like those kind of things. So we're going to hear a lot, and we're going to hear a lot, and I think we are going to find out a lot more, because I was reading earlier that she was doing Google searches. Why do they always go to Google? Google is not going to help you.
Case in April of this year. This case is an active case, and the investigation's ongoing.
Detective, what was the Sheriff's Office first involvement in this case?
On March 4th, 2022, at 3:22 hours, Summit County Dispatch received a 911 call regarding an unresponsive male in the Francis area.
Have you listened to that 911 call?
Yes.
Who placed that call?
The defendant, Kouri Richins.
In addition to saying that someone was unresponsive, did Ms. Richins, the defendant, identify who was unresponsive and anything else about that person's condition?
Yes, she stated that it was her husband, Eric Richins, that was unresponsive, that he was cold to the touch and not breathing. Did
EMS and police respond to that address?
Yes.
Is that the family home?
Yes.
Was a portion of the police and EMS response captured on police body camera video?
Yes, it was.
Have you reviewed that video?
Yes, I have.
On that video, what time does EMS pronounce Eric Richins dead?
03:58 hours on March 4th.
What, if anything else, does EMS say about how long he had been dead?
One of the EMS personnel made the comment that he had been dead a while.
Did the state medical examiner's office conduct an autopsy of Mr. Richins?
Yes, they did.
Have you reviewed the medical examiner's autopsy report?
Yes.
And the toxicology report that's part of that?
Yes.
What did the medical examiner identify as the cause of death?
drug intoxication with the specific drug being fentanyl.
I'm going to now ask you, Detective, some questions about someone with the initial CL. Do you know who I'm talking about when I say CL?
Yes, I do.
Who is CL in relation to the defendant?
CL is an associate of the defendant. She cleaned houses for the defendant's business as well as her personal home at times.
Does CL have a criminal drug history?
Yes.
Is she under supervision in a different county, a county other than Summit County?
Yes, she is.
And is that in relation to certain drug charges?
Yes.
Does the court program in which she's in monitor treatment and testing, et cetera?
Yes.
Do you know how CL is performing in that program?
Based on my interactions with CL, she is progressing through the stages of that program, and that her personal outlook on her recovery is optimistic.
Have you interviewed CL in connection with this case?
Yes.
Approximately how much time have you spent interviewing her?
Over the course of multiple interviews, several hours each, I would say upwards of 10 hours.
Was CL in custody when you interviewed her?
Yes, she was.
Was that interview captured on video and audio recording?
Yes.
What, if any, promises did you make regarding, to CL regarding her cooperation with being interviewed?
CL was not made any specific promises, but at the outset of our interviews, we explained to her that her cooperation in our investigation would result in us working with the prosecutors that were responsible for the charges she was facing.
Did you express to CL the seriousness of this case as well as the charges she was facing?
Yes, we expressed to her the seriousness of the charges and the possible results of those charges. As well, we impressed upon her the importance or the value of her testimony in this case as it related to the charges that she was facing, and that her testimony or any information that she may have was more important to us.
Did you stress to CL that the information you were asking her about needed to be credible and verifiable?
Yes, we told her at the beginning of our interview that any information that she may have, we would need to corroborate in order for it to be of value to us.
Did CL cooperate with being interviewed?
Yes, she did.
Did CL know Eric Richins?
Yes, CL told us that during the time that she spent cleaning the Richins home, she got to know Eric, that she felt that he was a really good person, she liked him, and she was very saddened to hear that he had passed away.
Did there come a time when investigators executed a search warrant on CL's home?
Yes.
In executing that warrant, did you make any observations consistent with CL's testimony that she felt bad about Eric Richins' death?
Yes. Inside the home, we identified a bedroom that belonged to CL. In the bedroom, there was a mirror above a desk. On the mirror were taped or affixed several inspirational quotes that seemed to relate to her recovery and her drug court program. Amongst all those inspirational quotes was a newspaper clipping of Eric Richins' obituary.
Did you get the impression that part of the reason CL cooperated is because she felt bad for Eric Richins?
Yes, in fact, she said so many times in our interviews.
Detective, I want to turn now to what, if anything, CL told you about the defendant requesting that CL purchase fentanyl for the defendant. What did CL tell you?
In our interviews, CL told us that in early 2022, the defendant reached out to her either by phone call or text message requesting that she procure fentanyl for what the defendant reported was an investor who had a back injury.
And upon the defendant asking CL to get fentanyl, what did CL do?
CL told us that she reached out to an acquaintance of hers, acquaintance one, and requested that she introduce her to somebody that could sell her fentanyl.
Did acquaintance one introduce CL to someone that could sell CL fentanyl?
Yes, CL said that acquaintance one provided her with a phone number of another acquaintance, acquaintance two, who was someone that she knew could sell CL fentanyl.
And did CL say that she ultimately contacted acquaintance two?
Yes, she did.
What, if anything, did CL say about purchasing fentanyl from acquaintance two?
CL told us that she contacted acquaintance two after receiving his phone number and asked to arrange to meet to purchase some fentanyl from him. She stated that sometime in February, she believed she met up with acquaintance two at a Maverick gas station in Draper and purchased from him 15 to 30 round green-blue pills, which she understood to be fentanyl.
Using phone records through the course of your interview with CL, were you ultimately able to narrow down on what that date was in February that CL purchased fentanyl from acquaintance two at the Maverick in Draper?
Yes, based on forensic evidence, we were able to determine that that date was February 11th, 2022.
What, if anything, did CL say about what she did with the fentanyl pills that she purchased from acquaintance two?
CL told us that after purchasing the pills from acquaintance two, she returned home to her house in Heber. She said that either later that night or the next day, the defendant met her in the driveway of that home and did a hand-to-hand exchange of pills for cash.
I'm going to turn now, Detective, to some questions regarding witnesses who corroborate CL's testimony, okay?
Okay.
You mentioned acquaintance number one. Have investigators interviewed acquaintance one?
Yes.
Have you reviewed body camera, audio and video of that interview?
Yes.
Does acquaintance one corroborate CL's testimony?
Yes. She stated that CL contacted her in early 2022 and asked for someone that could sell her fentanyl. In the body cam, she also retrieves her cell phone and shows investigators the messages that corroborated that.
And what kind of messages were they?
They were messages between acquaintance one and CL on Facebook Messenger app.
And have you reviewed those messages?
Yes.
Is the first of those messages dated February 6, 2022 at 1:37 p.m.?
Yes.
Does it read, text me, I've got a question, won't do it on this?
Yes.
And that's CL writing acquaintance one, asking acquaintance one to text CL because she didn't want to write over Facebook Messenger?
Correct.
Did acquaintance one say whether or not she ever, in response, contacted CL?
Yes. She said that she then either texted or called her subsequent to her request.
You testified that acquaintance two sold fentanyl pills to CL at the Maverick in Draper. Have investigators interviewed acquaintance two?
Yes.
Have you reviewed body camera, audio, and video of that interview?
Yes, I have.
Is acquaintance two able to corroborate CL's testimony?
Yes, acquaintance two was able to recall that he sold fentanyl pills to a friend of acquaintance one's in early 2022 at a Maverick gas station in Draper.
I'm going to turn now, Detective, to some forensic data questions and whether forensic data corroborates CL's narrative, okay?
Okay.
Have you reviewed carrier records of the defendant's phone?
Yes.
And I want to just clarify one thing. I'm talking right now about carrier records, different than cell data records. We'll have an expert testify about cell data records in a moment. I'm just going to ask you about the carrier records, okay?
Okay.
What, if anything, do the carrier records for the defendant's phone, or what, if anything, in the carrier records for defendant's phone corroborate CL's testimony?
The cell records from the defendant's phone show several phone calls back and forth between her and CL in early 2022.
Do they show any text messages back and forth between the defendant and CL?
Yes, several.
Have you reviewed those text messages?
We were only able to see the timestamps and who the sender and receiver was. We're not able to see the content of those messages because they appear to be deleted from both the defendant's phone and CL's phone.
Have you reviewed the call history and carrier records of CL's phone?
Yes.
Does CL's carrier records and call history corroborate CL's testimony?
Yes.
Is there a particular set of calls on February 11th, 2022 between 5:19 p.m. and 6:52 p.m. in CL's phone history?
Yes.
Did you question CL regarding those calls?
Yes. She said those calls were to acquaintance two and that they were to arrange the specific date and time to pick up fentanyl in Draper.
Turning now from CL's purchasing fentanyl for the defendant to the defendant's purported timeline on the night of Eric Richins' death, okay?
Okay.
You mentioned earlier that police interactions with the defendant were captured on video. Have you reviewed that video?
Yes, I have.
Did the defendant provide police with a written statement in the early morning of March 4th, 2022?
Yes, she did.
Have you reviewed that statement?
Yes.
What on the early morning of Eric Richins' death did the defendant report had happened that evening?
She stated that the last time that she saw Eric alive was between 9:30 and 9:45 p.m. She stated that before going to bed, they had had a drink together to celebrate closing on a house for her business. She said that they got in bed between 9:30 and 9:45, and that shortly after getting into bed, one of the children had a nightmare, and that the defendant got out of bed and went to be with that child in their bedroom and slept in that bedroom until 3 a.m. or around 3 a.m. when she woke. She stated she returned to her own bedroom, got into bed, and felt that Eric was cold to the touch. She stated that she turned the light on, saw that he wasn't breathing and that he didn't look normal, and that she then called 911.
Did the defendant say whether anyone else was in their home other than the defendant, her husband Eric Richins, and their 3 young children?
No, she stated no one else was in the home.
Turning now to the defendant's statements regarding whether she performed CPR on her husband, okay?
Okay.
Did the defendant tell investigators when they arrived at her home shortly after she called 911 whether or not she performed CPR on Eric Richins?
Yes, she reported that she did.
I'm going to refer to someone now as defendant's best friend. Do you know who I'm talking about?
Yes.
What, if anything, did the defendant tell her best friend regarding whether she performed CPR on Eric Richins?
Investigators found text messages between the defendant and her best friend that was her explanation to her friend that she conducted CPR on Eric prior to EMS arrival.
And do those text messages read, "I pumped so damn hard, so hard, screaming at him to come back to life"?
Yes.
You testified earlier, Detective, that EMS responded. Have you interviewed the first EMS responder?
Yes, I have.
What observations did that EMS responder make?
They told me that when they arrived, they began CPR compressions on Eric, and that upon beginning those compressions, Eric began to foam at the mouth. He stated that that observation indicated that CPR was not likely conducted before he arrived.
Detective, as part of your investigation, did you look into whether Eric Richins used illicit drugs?
Yes.
What did you determine?
Based on the interviews that we conducted with those who knew Eric well, all stated that he did not use illicit drugs other than consuming THC gummies on occasion.
Do those that you spoke to include Eric's two best friends that he's known since high school?
Yes, both made the same statement, that they never knew Eric to use any illicit substances other than the THC gummies.
When I reference a hunting guide in Mexico by the initials TR, do you know who I'm referring to?
Yes.
Did you speak to this hunting guide?
Other Summit County detectives did, yes.
And what did this hunting guide, if anything, say about Eric Richins using illicit drugs while hunting in Mexico?
The guide told detectives that several of their clients, when they come to Mexico, will seek out someone that can put them in contact with illicit substances while they are down there for their hunt. He stated that Eric Richins was not one of these, that Eric was solely focused on the hunt.
Has the defendant made any statements regarding whether her husband, Eric Richins, used illicit drugs other than THC?
Yes, in several statements made by the defendant throughout the investigation, there have been at least 10 times that she has said that Eric does not use illicit substances and did not use illicit substances.
And just to be clear, other than THC?
Other than the THC gummies, correct.
On the night Eric Richins died, did investigators search the Richins home?
Yes.
Did they find any illicit drugs?
No.
Did they find any paraphernalia or packaging or other evidence of illicit drugs?
No.
Did they find fentanyl anywhere in the home?
Only that which was in Eric's body.
We're going to now shift, Detective, from the night of Eric's death to a second drug buy initiated before his death and concluded after his death, okay?
Okay.
What, if anything, did CL tell you about the defendant approaching CL a second time for fentanyl?
CL told us that approximately a week after delivering the first load of fentanyl, the defendant reached out to her again by text or call and said that she wanted some more fentanyl that was stronger than the previous batch.
And in response, what, if anything, did CL do?
CL told us that she again reached out to acquaintance 1 because she had lost the phone number for acquaintance 2 and again requested from acquaintance 1 that she provide her with the phone number for acquaintance 2. She also made other statements in Facebook messages regarding that request.
In your interview, or detective's interview rather, with acquaintance One, did she corroborate that indeed CL reached back out to her asking for acquaintance 2's phone number?
Yes, in the same Facebook Messenger, it showed the two different contacts on the two different dates.
And does the second Facebook message, was it dated February 25th, 2022 at 9:40 p.m.?
Yes,
And does it read, "I need those again, but more, and I don't got a ride, I lost your friend's number"?
correct.
Did CL and acquaintance 1 both say that acquaintance 1 provided CL with acquaintance 2's phone number again?
Yes.
What then, if anything, did CL do with acquaintance 2's phone number the second time?
CL told us that she again contacted acquaintance 2 and arranged again to meet up at the same Maverick gas station in Draper to purchase again 15 to 30, this time blue round pills that she understood to be fentanyl.
Between, on the way to the Draper and Maverick, the second time, when she purchased 15, I'm sorry, did you say 15 to 30? What-
Yes, 15 to 30 pills.
Which she believed to be fentanyl. Did she make any stops along the way?
Yes, CL told us that the second time that she procured fentanyl for the defendant, she did not have a vehicle to drive on that date. She said that she reached out to a friend, acquaintance 3, and asked that he give her a ride to go purchase fentanyl. She said that he did pick her up, that they traveled from Heber City to the defendant's home in Francis, where, according to CL, the defendant had told her there was a check waiting under the mat at the defendant's home. She said that she checked under the mat and didn't find a check, and so she knocked on the defendant's door, and the defendant came to the door and wrote her a check from her business, from the defendant's business, for $1,300 for the purchase of the fentanyl. CL told us that afterwards they drove to the America First Credit Union in Heber City, where CL banks, and cashed the check and deposited $300 of it into her account at America First Credit Union. She said that after stopping at the bank and getting the cash, they then drove to the Maverick gas station in Draper and purchased the pills from acquaintance 2.
Did investigators execute a warrant at the America First Credit Union in Heber?
Yes, and that warrant returned a copy of the check written from the defendant's business account in the name of CL, and a receipt that shows that it was cashed and that $300 were deposited into CL's account.
And then CL ultimately, being driven by acquaintance 3, went to the Maverick in Draper and purchased fentanyl a second time from acquaintance 2.
Correct.
What, if anything, does acquaintance 2 say that corroborates CL's testimony?
Acquaintance 2 in his interview stated that he remembered selling fentanyl to a friend of acquaintance 1's on 2 separate occasions at the same Maverick gas station in Draper. He also said that he remembered the second time that he sold her the pills that CL was with another person who matched the age and gender of acquaintance 3.
Have you interviewed acquaintance 3?
Yes.
What, if anything, does acquaintance 3 say to corroborate CL's testimony?
Acquaintance 3 corroborated all the same details that CL told us about that day, and in fact showed us text messages on his phone that also corroborated that story.
Detective, I'm going to ask you now some questions about what are commonly known as bug-out bags, okay?
Okay.
Did investigators execute several search warrants on the defendant's home or the family home?
Yes.
Did those warrants identify what are commonly known as bug-out bags?
Yes. There were several duffel bags stored in the garage, along with backpack-sized day packs, and each was identical and labeled for a different member of the Richins family. Those backpacks were seized subject to a warrant and were inventoried and photographed. Inside the bags, detectives located several items that would be useful in an emergency situation. But the most interesting were documents needed for travel for each member of the family. Each bag contained a photocopy of a state-issued ID in the children's case, along with passports for Eric and the defendant, as well as global entry travel cards for both Eric and the defendant.
Did those bags also contain clothing, toiletries, that kind of thing?
Yes.
Do detectives know when those bags were packed?
No.
And there was a bag for Eric as well, is that right?
Correct.
I have no further questions for you. Mr. Lazar on mine. Thank you.
Okay, so I just wanted to interrupt it that way. I wasn't interrupting it in between too much, but I just, if you guys don't know what's going on and you're like, oh, what am I watching right now on Tanya's channel? We are watching the motions hearing. It's a detention hearing for Kouri Richins. She is on trial right now. This is like a bail hearing for her. She is in custody for the murder of her husband, Eric Richins. This happened last year. And she poisoned him with fentanyl pills and a Moscow mule. They were celebrating together. She had just closed a house. They were supposed to be celebrating. He had an inkling, though, that she was poisoning him before this. So I really wish she wouldn't have taken that drink that night. But this is a bail hearing for her. The state just kind of gave their reasoning why she should stay in custody. And then this is her defense attorney that's going to go up and say, blah, 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 this is why she should be out. They do have 3 boys together, and I'm not sure exactly where the boys are. I don't know if one of their family members has them. Hopefully they do, and they're not in, like, the system or anything. But if she did get a bail, I would hope that that would be part of the stipulation, that she would have to stay away from her kids. Because I just don't think it's a good idea to, if you're on trial for murdering your spouse, to let the kids like back in your life. We've seen horrible things happen in those instances. So,
Detective, it's O'Driscoll, right?
Correct.
Good morning.
Good morning.
and don't
I'm gonna
forget to hit
follow
that
a
like
little bit
button,
the
please.
Same timeline, just so we kind of keep things together. You said you reviewed the body cam that was provided on the night that Eric passed away, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And that Kouri made a statement that night to police, a written statement.
Correct.
Okay. And she told them that she had made a drink, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so they were aware of that. Was there anything in that body cam or investigation that talks about them looking for a glass that a drink had been made in?
No.
Okay. But you said that they searched for illicit drugs, correct?
I don't know if they searched for illicit drugs, but they searched the home.
Okay, so they searched the home that night, knowing that he had a drink right before he went to bed, and made no note that they had recovered glasses, looked for glasses, anything along those lines, correct?
Not to my understanding.
Okay. You also testified that when you interviewed CL, she was working on both a personal and, I'm going to say, professional capacity for Kouri, correct?
Correct.
And she was cleaning houses that she was both cleaning Kouri's personal home, and then she would clean homes that were investment properties, correct?
CL told us that she cleaned both homes for Ms. Richins' business, as well as at another time frame, she cleaned their personal home.
Okay.
So not necessarily at the same time.
But at the time, she was cleaning homes for the business, correct?
Which time are you referring to?
On or about the time leading up to or during your investigation, end of the year, end of 2021, beginning of 2022?
At that time, from my understanding, what CL told us, she was cleaning only investment properties belonging to the Richins Realty Company.
And she was getting compensated for that, correct?
Yes,
Okay, and so the check that you issued the search warrant on for the bank, that was written from Kouri's business account, correct?
correct.
Okay, so it could very well be that Kouri was paying her for cleaning houses, correct?
I don't want to speculate, but
It could be.
It's
Despite
possible.
what CL said, correct? Okay. You also testified that CL was progressing through her drug court program, and you were optimistic about how she would do in it, correct?
no, I testified that she was optimistic about her own personal
Sorry if I
recovery.
misstated that. How long were you investigating CL? When did you begin investigating CL?
I don't know an exact date, but the beginning of 2023.
Okay. And were you monitoring what she was doing at that time?
Yes,
Okay. Because you knew she had a boyfriend or this guy in Vegas, some other details about her life, correct?
initially at the outset of investigating CL, no, we didn't know all those details.
But over the course of your investigation, you learned them?
Correct.
Did you have CL's phone, correct?
Summit County Sheriff's Office evidence text too.
But you've reviewed it?
Yes,
Okay. And you testified about text messages between CL and the defendant on or about this time period you're looking at in February, correct?
correct.
Okay. Did you review any other information prior to that time about contact that CL and the defendant had had?
I'm unsure,
Did you even
but
look?
it's possible that we looked into communications. In this investigation, initial stages, we looked into communications with everybody that the defendant had been communicating with.
Okay. But you don't recall, or you didn't look for a pattern of communication between CL and the defendant, is that correct? You were focused on February?
I guess that depends on what stages of the investigation you're talking about.
I'm talking about any of them. Did you ever look and see if CL and the defendant texted each other about anything on a regular basis?
Yes.
Okay. And how far back did those go?
I'm not sure on exact dates again, but into 2021.
Okay. So for a period of time, because CL is working for the defendant, there's communication, correct?
Correct.
And nowhere in the communication between CL and defendant are there any text messages asking for drugs, correct?
We didn't find any, but there were also gaps in time frames in the phones when we looked at them.
Now, I want to also talk about, you said you didn't make any promises to CL, is that correct?
Correct. No specific promises.
Okay. You did, however, tell her, well, let me back up. When was the first interview you had with CL?
I believe it was April 28th or 26th. I believe it was the 26th.
Did you have any contact with her prior to that?
No.
Did anybody from law enforcement have contact with her prior to that?
Not from our office.
You don't know if anyone else talked to her?
I don't.
Okay. Now, part of this came out of a raid or something along the lines that was coordinated with at least ATF and some other agencies, correct?
CL's home was subject to a search warrant based on information that we had gathered during our investigation into CL.
Okay. And that search warrant would essentially contradict that she was doing well and what she was supposed to be doing in drug court, correct? She was buying drugs, wasn't she?
We didn't know that. We knew that she was associating with people that we knew had active warrants for drug charges.
Okay. And that would be a violation of drug court conditions, correct?
From my understanding, yes, but I don't know the details of that.
Okay. And as part of that search warrant, were individuals arrested?
CL was arrested, yes.
There were other individuals who were arrested too, correct?
I'm not recalling other individuals that were arrested on the date that the warrant was served.
Okay. Were any drugs recovered at the home?
Yes.
Okay. And you also recovered a firearm from CL's bedroom, correct?
Correct.
And that would be a violation of her drug court conditions, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Now, in this first interview in April, you begin the interview. Give me a moment here to find the right notes. By explaining to CL essentially how dire of a situation she's in, correct?
I don't have the interview memorized, but I know we talked about that, yes.
Okay, well, you told her that she was on probation to drug court for 4 first-degree felonies, correct?
Correct.
Okay, a violation of that is a potential prison sentence, correct?
It would depend on the prosecutor, but that's potentially true.
Okay, a first-degree felony carries a possible penalty of life in prison, correct?
I don't know. I would have to reference the code.
So you told her she was facing problems with that, correct? That
Correct.
this would be a violation. So she'd be on the hook for 4 first-degree felonies.
Potentially, yes.
Okay. And you also told her that having the firearm could potentially be a new crime, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And then you also told her that the U.S. Attorney's Office was essentially on board with screening drug distribution charges, correct? I'm happy to play it if you don't remember.
I don't remember specifically.
Okay. Do you remember talking to her about potential federal charges?
Yes.
Okay. So she was aware that not only was she facing multiple first-degree felony prison sentences, she was also potentially facing federal charges, correct?
Correct.
And during that initial interview, she tells you that she didn't buy fentanyl, correct?
I don't know if she made that specific statement, but she talked about not knowing anything about fentanyl.
Okay. And that interview lasted about an hour and 19 minutes, hour and 20 minutes, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And that interview ends, well, with you telling her well, several times you tell her to think through all of this and let you know if she wants to help, correct?
Yes, I gave her the opportunity to tell us up front whether she was willing to cooperate or if we should just not bother interviewing her anymore.
Okay. But this is after you essentially tell her that she has the potential of doing a considerable amount of state and federal prison time, potentially.
Yes, this is a common tactic in law enforcement to be able to leverage charges for information.
Okay. In fact, you did in this case leverage charges for information because you told her that you didn't care about first-degree felonies or federal charges. What you cared about was information about Kouri getting drugs, correct?
I told her that I was interested in the information that she may know about this case.
Okay. But you told her also that Eric died of a fentanyl overdose, correct?
Correct.
And you told her that you thought that Kouri gave him the drugs, correct?
I did not specifically say that.
You alluded to the fact that you needed information about Kouri getting fentanyl because that's how Eric died, correct?
I don't know if I made that specific statement, but the information that we tried to convey to CL was that we wanted to know the information that she may have regarding Eric's death.
Okay. And you didn't care about any additional charges, all you cared about was that information, correct?
As I said previously, we expressed to her that the information that she may have was more valuable to us than seeking charges against her.
Okay. All right. And then you interview her 2 more times, is that right?
No, there were, I believe, 3 more after our first one.
Okay. Were all of those audio and video recorded?
Yes,
Okay. And those were turned over to the state in this case, correct? The state being the prosecutor's office? Okay. Now, forgive me because with all these interviews, I'm not sure which one comes from which. You, in subsequent interviews, tell CL that she needs to give good enough details that will ensure that Kouri gets convicted of murder, correct?
I don't know if I made that specific statement, but I did express to her that the information that she gave us needed to be specific enough that we could corroborate it and that it could be presented to a courtroom.
Okay. And that she was, quote, screwed at this point for a minute or a few years if there's not cooperation, correct?
No, I never made such statement.
Okay. Did you ever tell her this was her get-out-of-jail-free card?
No, I did not.
Okay. Are you sure about that?
Yes.
Okay. Now, at some point, CL tells you that in one of the interviews that Kouri contacted her between December and February to obtain prescription pills for an investor, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And she doesn't specifically state fentanyl at that point, correct?
Are you referring to CL?
I'm referring to CL.
I don't remember, but I don't believe so.
Okay. And in fact, and I'm guessing it's something where on the second or third interview, CL says that those first pills, well, never says those first pills are fentanyl, correct? It never says that Kouri asked for fentanyl, correct?
I'm sorry, could you rephrase the question?
Sorry. In those first, in the first transaction, so initially, CL tells you that there were 3 transactions prior to Eric's death, correct?
Yes, and what I have to say here is that
Well,
none
that
of,
was a yes or no question.
but none of the information that we got from CL was perfectly chronological. We had to piece it together over multiple interviews to come to the conclusion that we came to.
Because you told her you needed something more specific to ensure that Kouri gets convicted, right?
No, we told her that we needed more details on what she was talking about and specific dates and times.
Okay. But in the first one, she says there's 3 transactions prior to Eric's death, correct?
At some point in our interviews, she told us there were 3 total transactions.
Okay. And she says that Kouri was only looking for prescription pills or hydrocodone pills, to be specific, correct?
CL referred to them as Roxy's.
Okay. What do you know Roxy's to be?
They can be different things in the drug world. They can either be counterfeit pills that are meant to look like a prescription pill, or they can be actual prescription pills, but generally they're known to be opiate-based drugs, whether illicit or pharmaceutical.
Okay, so something along the lines of hydrocodone or Oxycontin or something along those lines, correct?
It could be, yes.
Okay. And she specifically says that she was looking for $900 worth of fentanyl pills, correct?
I don't know if initially, but she did make the statement of $900 at one point in one of our interviews.
Okay. And she says that Kouri told her to leave the pills at an outdoor fire pit at the Midway house where there was cash, correct?
I don't know if she made that exact statement, but yes, she told us that at some point in part of the exchange that she was instructed to leave pills in an outdoor fire pit in a house in Midway.
Okay. And in fact, you sat there with her in this interview and did house searches, correct? Trying to figure out which house this was.
Yes.
Okay. Because she couldn't really tell you which house it was, correct?
She couldn't give us an address, but she was confident that she could find it if she could drive there.
Okay. And did you take her for a drive there?
Yes.
Okay. Did you ever do any follow-up investigation on whether or not that house ever sold?
Yes.
Okay. And you know that that house sold sometime in January of 2022, correct?
From what I understand, yes.
Okay. So Ms. Richins no longer owned that home or occupied that home or had access to that home in February, correct?
I don't know.
Well, the house was owned by somebody else, right?
Again, I don't know.
Well, you said it closed in January of 2022.
From the information that I was told from other people, other investigators that had looked into that, I was told that Ms. Richins owned the house at some point and that it sold at some point. I don't know dates exactly. or
Okay, don't you
times.
think that date would be important if CL's telling you that she had access to the home and was there in February?
Possibly.
That might be a good fact to know. Okay. CL then does subsequent interviews, correct?
Yes, we had multiple interviews with her.
Okay. And after being told that she needs to be more specific, as your words are, correct? She now says that it was specifically fentanyl that Kouri asked for, correct?
Correct.
And that she didn't actually take the pills to that house in Midway. It was a hand-to-hand transaction, correct?
Like I said, she went back and forth on her memory on which instances referred to which transactions. And ultimately, she told us that she was sure that the first transaction of fentanyl was a hand-to-hand transaction in her driveway.
Okay. And was what's been referred to as acquaintance 3, was that in regard to that transaction?
No,
Okay.
was the second transaction.
Were you ever to corroborate, was anyone with her that could corroborate that she saw CL hand Kouri drugs?
Not that I know of.
And then she states that now there was a third transaction that occurred after Eric's death, correct?
She didn't make the statement that it was after Eric's death, but she told us there were 3 total transactions.
So the information contained in the state's amended information, you don't know where that came from?
Which information are you referring
That
to?
she purchased drugs after Eric's death?
Yes, I do know where it came from.
Okay. And you're saying CL did not sell drugs to Kouri after Eric's death?
CL could not remember specific dates and did not make mention that the transaction happened after Eric's death. But when presented with digital evidence from other witnesses, she confirmed that that was most likely correct.
Okay. So she just agreed with your scenario of events, correct?
No, in fact, several times during our interviews, she told us that as we presented her more information, it helped her remember more.
Okay. So as you're telling her to be more specific, you're providing her with information that you're gaining in the case, and she's saying, now I remember. Accurate?
Yes.
All right. You also testified that you interviewed 2 of Eric's best friends, right?
Yes.
And during one of those interviews, so I'm going to go back to CL for just a second. On this transaction that you allege that this check was used for, or the state alleges this check was used for, you testified that she picked up the check that was written on Kouri's business account and cashed it, right?
Correct.
And drove to the Maverick and purchased fentanyl.
She didn't drive, but she was.
Someone drove her,
Yes.
okay? And the person with her corroborates that.
Correct.
And that third witness never saw CL give those drugs to Kouri, correct? Acquaintance 3 never saw that?
Acquaintance 3 didn't tell us that he ever saw that, no.
Okay. In fact, there's no independent witness to corroborate that CL gave Ms. Kouri those drugs, correct?
No eyewitnesses that we have identified, but the investigation is ongoing.
And CL is currently out of custody, right?
Depends on your definition of custody, but she's not incarcerated, no.
Not incarcerated, she's on, I think, ankle monitor and not to leave the county, right?
Correct.
But following your interviews with her, she was released from jail.
Not immediately, no. She worked with the prosecutor in the other county where her drug court is and came to a resolution as to those charges against her. And part of that was being released on ankle monitor.
Okay, so in exchange for the testimony, or not testimony, in exchange for the information that she provided to you, and a deal was worked out where she was placed, essentially released from jail on the order to show cause, correct?
I don't know the specifics of what went on between the prosecutor and CL,
Okay.
But subsequent to our interviews, we reached out to the prosecutor's office and let them know that she was being cooperative. After that, I was not involved in any decisions regarding her release.
Okay, because that's up to the judge and whatnot.
Correct.
But you did communicate that to prosecutors?
Yes.
That she gave you the information you needed?
That she was being cooperative with our investigation, yes.
Right, I want to turn now to your interview, and I'm going to use initials. Are you okay with that? Okay. You had an interview with one of Eric's friends. His initials are JS. Do you recall that?
Yes.
Okay. That interview occurred about April 20th. Is that correct?
That seems right. I don't know a specific date, but
Okay. And during that interview, he discussed, or you discussed with him, that he and another individual were essentially Eric's best friends, correct?
So Sarah, my apologies.
Yes.
April 20th of which year?
Oh, 2023.
Three.
I apologize.
Thank you.
At any point during that interview, did JS mention that Eric had said that at any point during he and Kouri's marriage, he was concerned that Kouri was attempting to poison him?
I don't recall, but I don't think so.
In fact, you present him essentially 3 scenarios of what could have happened to Eric, correct? That he potentially did it to himself knowingly, that someone else did it to him, or that it was accidental, right? And you specifically ask him if he thinks Kouri would have done it, and he says, no, in my gut, I don't believe so, correct?
I don't know if that was a direct quote, but yes, he said that he didn't believe that she would have done it.
And he also states during that interview that at the time of his death, Eric and Kouri's marriage was in a really good place.
Yes.
Correct? Now, he also details or talks about a falling out that he and Eric had over the course of their friendship, correct?
Yes, that sounds familiar.
And that Eric and his other friend that he refers to in this interview actually had a falling out right before Eric passed away, correct?
Yes.
You also talk about, or he talks about the fact that, you know, all 3 of them at different times that had marital problems, that they had helped each other through, correct?
JS told me that he and Eric and their other friend would confide in each other about their marriages and would share information, and that was how he had the insight that he had into Eric's life.
Okay. He also talks about that Eric changed or created these trust documents, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And his understanding, based on what he said that Eric told him, was because Eric was pissed or upset about a relationship that Kouri had, correct? Or he thought she had.
I don't remember the specifics of that part of the interview, but I do remember that JS was aware that Eric had made the trust.
And he doesn't specifically say anywhere in that interview that the trust was made because he was mad about this home equity loan, correct?
JS expressed to us that he understood that the reason that Eric created the trust was to ensure his son's well-being if anything were to happen to him.
And he also expresses to you that, because you asked him why it wasn't changed back, or because the sister was made the trustee, correct? And
I'm sorry, I don't understand the
the
question.
sister, so in those trust documents, sorry, that was a terrible question. In those trust documents, the sister was made the trustee, correct?
From what I understand, yes.
And you asked JS specifically, or somewhere along the lines of, if they were doing so well, why would he have not changed that back?
Yes.
Okay. And he tells you that it was his way of ensuring that even if they were doing well at the time, if there was a divorce, he would get the last word in it, right?
I remember him using that phrase, getting the last word, yes.
All right. Now, you also testified today about this hunt that took place down in Mexico, right? Correct? And this hunt was February of 2022, correct?
I don't know specific dates, but I'm aware that Eric was on a hunt in Mexico shortly before his death.
Okay. And JS tells you that he was really upset, actually leading in the days right before he passed away, about what had happened with this hunt, right?
Yes.
And he was upset that they had paid an outfitter for a number of permits that they believed the outfitter had procured, correct?
Yes, from what I'm recalling, he was upset about the outfitter or the guide had not gotten enough permits for the amount of animals that they ended up taking, and it caused some concerns over legal requirements of tagging animals.
Okay. And getting the cape or anything else, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And this is the same, is this outfitter the person that you investigated? Or that you interviewed?
Someone associated with that hunt and that outfit, yes. I'm not sure the exact association, but a contact for that outfitter.
Okay. So that outfitter was aware that they had made some serious problems for Eric with regard to how many animals they took in Mexico, correct?
According to JS, yes.
And in your subsequent investigation, you know that Eric had had some heated conversations, actually, the night before he passed, or the night that he passed away, with that outfitter, correct?
We received information about that, yeah.
Okay. In fact, he was searching how far it was to drive from Scottsdale down there, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Well, his phone showed that search.
Okay. And JS also told you that he had information or believed that this outfitter was somehow connected to the cartel, correct?
I don't recall. That sounds familiar, but I don't recall if those were the words that he used.
But essentially, he was
He
made reference.
JS made a statement about the cartel when he was talking about Eric and that hunt, yes.
Okay.
Counsel, would you approach for a minute?
Yes.
Well, I don't know why it just stopped like that. Let me go back just like a tad bit.
Had,
No, because they end up. This is so weird that they did that. Trying to figure it out. Because they have, so on the stand they have one of the detectives and that's who she's trying to get them like kind of mixed up. But I was on Twitter because I thought that this cut off, and I don't know why it did that, because it was a live. Like, I mean, it's live, like on Court TV. So let me go back to Court TV. Shoot. And let's see. I'm wondering if this is the rest of it. That's what I'm thinking. A lipstick break, maybe, yeah. So, because I know that they end up like denying her, so I think that this might be the rest of it, because it's an extra 30 minutes. It's like on the Court TV channel. Let me see if it's where
He's
it says
murdered
live. See, they just must have had that pre-recorded. We'll see what this one says. This
Tell
one.
us your name and spell your last name.
Sure, it's Chris Kotrodimus. Last name is Kotrodimus.
Thank you. Mr. Kotrodimus, how are you employed at this point in time?
I own a private investigation firm,
What's that called?
M20 Solutions,
How long have you been the owner of that firm?
about 7 months.
What did you do prior to owning that business?
I was a police officer for over 23 years.
And where did you work as a police officer?
I started my career in Raleigh, North Carolina. I moved to Utah and took a position with Salt Lake City Police Department, where I worked on the homicide unit there. In 2017, I took a position with the Salt Lake County District Attorney's Office on the homicide team there, and until my retirement in December of 2022.
Do you have any specialized education, training, or experience with forensic digital evidence?
I do, yes.
Could you briefly explain what that is?
Sure. So I've attended several formal courses, one being a Cellbrite Certified Operator course, a Cellbrite Certified Physical Analyzer course. I've also attended a 40-hour cell phone analysis and mapping course through ZX. After using those skills for several years, I also attended a ZX 40-hour subject matter expert course on the same subject, cell phone, social media mapping, those types of things. My experience related to my testimony on those courses is I've worked either directly or indirectly on more than 200 homicides and major crimes. I've inspected and evaluated thousands of phone and social media records and phone downloads.
Thank you. What is your role in the case that brings you to court today?
I was retained by the Summit County Attorney's Office to evaluate digital evidence in this case.
And what evidence have you reviewed?
I reviewed several cell phone downloads or extractions. I've reviewed and analyzed call detail records and some social media records, things like that.
Can you tell us what the difference between carrier records and call data records are?
Yeah, so a call data record or a cell download is kind of what it's commonly called, is information that is extracted or downloaded from a phone onto some type of media, external drive, things like that. And it does so into a reader in which you're able to analyze the data that's contained within a device. That's a cell phone extraction or download. A carrier record or a call detail record is the regular record that you would have. It's the usage of the phone through your carrier. So it records the date and times of your calls, your texts, your data usage for a given period of time. And it can include location information, such as like tower data.
Can there be discrepancies between carrier records and the data that's extracted from a device?
Yes.
What would cause that?
Usually, sometimes it's because it just wasn't captured in the phone download due to a software limitation, but typically where we see it is through deletion of information on the device that does not match the carrier records that we receive from the phone company.
Did you analyze forensic extractions of an iPhone belonging to the defendant that was seized April 13th of 2022?
I did.
Does it contain digital information pertaining to the night of March 3rd and into the morning of March 4th, 2022?
It does.
What does that phone show? Well, let me ask it this way. What is the last time that that phone is used on March 3rd of 2022?
The last activity reported on the defendant's phone is an activity device movement at 22:33 hours or 10:33 p.m. on March 3rd.
When was the next time that that phone was used?
The phone was inactive and then ultimately unlocked at 3:07 a.m. on March 4th, 2022.
Was there anything that happened between those two timeframes?
On that device?
On
No.
that device?
No.
Does the extraction of that phone indicate if it was moved in that time frame?
It does.
And how are you able to tell that?
Through the download, in this case, we use Cellbrite for the download. In the download, it gives an activity, like a connected device activity movement. Usually that's an indicator of another connected device, such as a tablet or a smartwatch or something of that nature. Those
And-
two, yeah, I'm sorry, those two devices will communicate with each other and report potential movement of the phone through that application.
Was there anything significant that occurred at 3:22 hours on March 4th?
At 3:22, yes, a 911 call was made.
So between the time that the phone is used at 3:07 that morning and 3:22, is there any activity that could be seen from the download?
There is.
What is that?
At 3:07, the device is unlocked. At 3:08 a.m., the device reports some type of movement, either the device itself or a connected device is moving. At 3:12, the phone was unlocked. At 3:16, the phone was unlocked again. At 3:19, the phone was unlocked again, potentially twice. There was movement again at 3:21, and then at 3:22, the 911 call was made.
So roughly a time frame of 15 minutes between the first time that phone is used and the time that a 911 call is placed.
Correct.
Now, the attached device that's recording movement, could that be an Apple Watch?
It could be.
Do you have any way of telling from the extraction you examined what that device was that was recording that movement?
So far in the extraction, I have not been able to. I may at some point, but at this point, no.
And as far as the movement, what kind of movement is this? Is it significant?
It is significant, I think, for it occurring in a home.
And can you explain what that movement was?
Correct. So at 3:08, there's movement on the phone, or on a device is connected to that phone is moving. And it moves, I don't remember the exact amount of time, but I believe it's several feet. I do know that at some point, there was two movements right before the 911 call, and they're both significant. One was about 240 feet, it was like 74 meters and change. And the other one was about 130 feet. And this is right before the 911 call.
Okay, thank you. As you were analyzing the forensic data from that extraction, were you able to observe any noticeable patterns of deletion from that phone?
It appears that there is some deletion in that device.
Okay. And can you describe what is being deleted in that phone?
It looks like there's gaps in things like web history, web searches, particularly the call log. When a person makes or receives a call or a text, those are recorded in the call log of the phone. And there are there's messaging that is included in the carrier report, the call detail record, that I would expect to see also logged within the device that are not in the device.
Okay, so you're seeing those in the carrier records, but not on the device themselves?
Correct. For instance, there's multiple calls and texts to an individual. I would expect to also see that retained in the call log of the device itself. And in a lot of instances, particularly in the weeks prior to the death, there's a lot of that is missing.
And from the carrier records, are you able to tell who those calls were going to?
Yes,
Who was that?
there are several people. But as it relates to this case, one that stood out was a witness that has been mentioned as CL.
In those carrier records, were there logs of calls made to CL in January of 2022?
I don't recall January.
Did you analyze a forensic extraction of a second iPhone belonging to the defendant that was seized in May of 2023?
Yes.
When did activity begin on that phone?
The activity on that phone started shortly after her original phone was seized in April of 2022.
Were you able to observe internet searches on that phone?
Yes.
And did you create a PowerPoint of some of those searches?
I did.
And just for the court and council's reference, this is docket item 141. Were you able to tell when those searches were done?
Yes.
How did you do that?
There is a date and time stamp of the history, the web history. So for instance, if you visit a website and you click through it using your device, it will report what date and time that you did that, connected to that website.
I see. On April 18th of 2022, did the phone access an internet site of an article entitled "What Happens to Deleted Messages"?
Yes.
On May 10th of 2022, did that phone access a site for an article entitled "How Do Police and Forensic Analysts Recover Deleted Data from Phones"?
Yes.
Did that phone was a query placed in that phone, quote, "Can cops, period, uncover deleted, period, messages, iPhone," close quote?
Yes.
Did that phone search, quote, "How to, period, permanently delete information from an iPhone remotely," close quote?
Yes.
Did that phone search, quote, "Luxury prisons for the rich in America"?
It did.
Did that phone search, quote, "If someone is poisoned, what does it go down on the death certificate as," close quote?
Yes.
Were you able to tell when those things were searched?
The search themselves, there was no date and time reported for the individual search. However, I found corresponding websites to those searches that did have the dates and times in the web history.
And was there a certain time frame that these searches were made?
They were.
Can you describe what that was?
It was typically shortly after her original phone was seized. So from middle of April of 2022 through, memory serves me right, about August of 2022, off and on.
Thank you. Now, you mentioned your training with cell phone mapping using cell tower data.
Yes.
Have you employed that in your review of the evidence in this case?
I have.
And specifically, can you explain just briefly how cell phone mapping is done using cell phone, cell tower data?
Sure. Sorry, I look that way. I'm used to talking to a jury. So cell mapping is accomplished by taking call detail records that contain tower location in them and putting them into a piece of software that will visually show you a location on a map of which tower that device was accessing when it made or received a call or a text. So it takes lines of data and creates a map out of it.
Okay. And is that plotted on like a program like Google Earth?
It is.
Okay. And are you able to tell any directionality from when a phone connects to a tower? Is there any directionality to that where you can tell approximately where that phone is transmitting from?
Yes, yeah. So the cell phone, the companies report which tower the device is utilizing and which sector. There's an estimated range to that, which is a bit ambiguous on the range. However, it will tell us at least what side of the tower that the device was located when it made or received a call or text.
How many sectors are there on each cell tower?
Typically 3.
Okay. And so if a phone is connecting to a tower through a certain sector, can you tell that it's someplace where that sector is for lack of a better word, broadcasting or collecting signals?
Yeah, so we can determine the orientation of the device to certain locations.
I see.
Yeah.
Did you map data from CL's phone extraction?
I did.
Were you able to track that phone's movements on February 11th of 2022?
Yes,
At any time, was it at or near a Maverick gas station in Draper, Utah?
it is.
And are you aware of the significance of that location in this investigation?
I am.
And what is that?
This is the location that CL had indicated to detectives that she bought drugs on behalf of the defendant.
Do you recall approximately what time of day that was it was there?
She shows up on that tower near that Maverick at about 6:49 p.m. and remains there until about 8 p.m. on February 11th, 2022.
Does that phone make any calls or send any texts while at that location?
It did.
And to anyone notable to this investigation?
Yes, 2 people.
Who was that?
One would be to another acquaintance in which CL indicated she had purchased the drugs from, and CL was also texting with the defendant.
While she was at a gas station in Draper purchasing narcotics.
Correct.
On that day, did the phone go to a did the phone go to a location in Heber City?
It did.
Was the mapping that you did of CL's phone consistent with the account that CL gave to law enforcement regarding that first drug purchase?
Yes.
Were you able to track CL's phone movements on March 9th of 2022?
Yes,
Was the phone ever in Francis, Utah on that day?
it was.
Was it ever at or near the same Maverick in Draper, Utah?
It was.
Were there any communications from the phone at that time while it was at the Maverick?
Yes, at the Maverick, yes.
Did it communicate with any phone belonging to a person relevant to this investigation?
It did.
Who was that?
At the Maverick, it communicated with, I guess, corroborating witnesses to the drug purchase on the 9th. When the device was utilizing a tower in Francis, it was about midday on March 9th, and CL's phone was in communication with the defendant's phone.
While she was in Francis, Utah.
Correct.
Did the phone go to a location in Midway, Utah on or about that day?
Yes.
Are the movements that you tracked for CL's cell phone on March 9th of 2022 consistent with the information she gave to law enforcement in this investigation?
Yes.
Finally, I want to speak with you briefly about Mr. Eric Richins' phone. Did you analyze a forensic extraction of his phone?
I did.
When was the last use recorded from Eric's phone?
From memory, I believe it was about 9:58 PM on March 3rd, 2022.
And are the times that are on the extraction from that are populated in the Celebrite download, are those, what time zone are those given in?
Typically, the extraction is provided in UTC 0.
Okay.
Yes.
And so do you have to, so can you just briefly explain what UTC 0 is?
Right, so UTC 0 is Greenwich Mean Time. It's an effort by people that utilize data and do data investigations to try and keep everybody on the same time zone. Utah is in UTC -7 during standard daylight time, and we are in -6 in daylight savings time. So from November, in this case, from November of 2022 to about March 13th, November of 2021 to March, I believe it was March 13th, 2022, local time in Utah was UTC -7.
Okay. So if those times are given on that download as UTC -5, that would be Eastern Standard Time?
Correct. It would be 2 hours ahead of local Utah time.
So to adjust for Mountain Standard Time, you would have to go back 2 hours?
You'd have to subtract 2 hours, yes,
Okay.
sir.
And that's what gave you, can you repeat that the last time that Eric's phone was used on March 3rd?
I believe it was 9:58 PM on March 3rd.
Okay, thank you. If I could just have one moment, Judge. Thank you, Mr. Kotradimus. Those are all of my questions at this time. Thanks.
Just a moment. You testified there are essentially two explanations for why things might be missing. One in a download. One is that it's not captured in the download, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and that can happen.
It can.
Okay. And then the other is whether or not it's been deleted.
Correct.
Okay. In this case, all you can say definitively is that it's missing, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Now, with regard to movement, that could be any device that is essentially attached to the phone through an app, correct?
It could be, yes.
Okay, and so you can't say, looking at what you analyzed, exactly what device that was, correct?
So far, no.
Okay, and you can't tell where that device was in terms of location, correct?
Correct.
So it's possible that that could have been a device attached to it from some other location, but the phone's recording it, correct?
It would be unlikely.
But it's possible, if it's connected to an app,
It depends on the range.
okay?
So it would be impossible outside a certain range.
Okay. And there's a number of different ways to, or different programs, and forgive me, I am not an expert in this, so. There's a number of different programs or extractions that can be done on phones, correct?
Correct.
Or different ways to do them.
Correct.
Okay. Did you perform an independent extraction on this phone?
I did not.
Okay, or on any of the phones you've talked about today?
No.
Okay. Did you analyze any data prior to January of 2022 on either CL's phone or either phone, or I guess the first phone belonging to Ms. Richins?
I don't believe I did.
Okay, were you asked to only look at a particular date range?
Not necessarily, no.
Okay. Were you given the date range of interest?
Yeah,
Okay. And so you didn't cross-reference any communication or the frequency of communication between CL and Kouri prior to January of 2022, correct?
correct.
So it could be that they communicated all the time and you wouldn't have known.
Yes,
So this could have been just a normal course of communication between the two.
sure, yes.
Were you made aware of when the search warrant was, or when the first phone was seized?
Yes,
Okay. And were you given a copy of the search warrant?
no,
Okay. Were you made aware that the search warrant included evidence of homicide that they were looking at?
no.
And in that first phone, prior to Eric passing away, were you able to review any search history of the web browser
Of whose device?
on the first device of Ms. Richins?
Of Ms. Reed, yes, yes.
Okay. And were there any searches related to fentanyl on that?
Not that I found it. There were not many searches available to
And,
look at.
okay, no searches related to prisons either?
No, not in that time frame.
Okay. No searches related to deleting messages?
No,
And so all the searches came from the second phone, correct?
the web searches mentioned, yes.
Okay.
Yes,
And that was the phone that was seized after the search warrant was issued for the first phone, correct?
that was,
Because
yes.
that's the
So
phone
that
she got
was-
as a replacement, right?
Yes,
Okay.
correct.
I just want to return to this mapping, or move to this mapping that you discussed. Did you look at the mapping on the second phone of Ms. Richins?
I did not.
So the state didn't ask you to compare Ms. Richins' phone to CL's location at any point, correct?
They did,
Okay.
yes. they
But you
did.
couldn't do it? Or didn't
No.
do it?
The records, the mapping location for those call detail records through Verizon are no longer available
On the second phone?
on either phone.
Okay, so you were able to get them off of CL's phone, but because of Verizon, you weren't able to get them on Ms. Richins' phone?
Correct.
Okay. And on that March 9th date, you discussed her being in Francis midday in the Maverick. What time was she at that Maverick?
It was about 3 p.m.,
Okay, so after
2 or
she'd
3
been,
p.m.
after she'd been to,
She was
To Francis.
she was in Francis around midday,
okay,
and she was at the Maverick at about 2:33 p.m.
okay. Did she go back to Francis?
She went to Heber.
Okay. And she lives in Heber?
She does.
Okay. I don't think I have any other questions.
Thank you. Mr. Hill, anything further?
No, thank you.
So you can step down. Thank you.
Okay, did it to us again. But I didn't see any more videos available yet, so the judge did deny her bail. I was trying to see if I could read out her Google searches. We might have to do that on our next live so I can get them all together. But apparently she was Googling rich prisons, people, like prisons for rich people, things of that nature. I mean, that's not going to work, honey. You don't have any money. What else was that she researching? Let me see. She also looked at an article and was like Googling signs of being under federal investigation and delaying claim payment for death certificate with pending cause of death. Oh, some of the ones were like benign. I guess she looked up how to undo microblading. What kind of doctor was Dr. Pepper? And is Little Nos married? What? I mean, I guess we all Google weird things. I don't know. If someone caught my phone, they'd probably be like, oh, what have you been Googling? Well, thank you. She knows you don't pay tuition to prison. Yeah, like you don't get a pick. Yeah, you don't get to pick which one you go to. Let me start my camera here since we're done with that. My belly just like started hurting a little bit. But I might come back on and do a live tonight. I'm debating on it because I've been in a couple rabbit holes with Idaho 4 case, and I wanted to like talk to you guys about those. One being, well, the one that I wanted to do tonight will probably be just like going back to the beginning, just wiping our heads clean, going back to the beginning of the case. But to end out this case, she had those Google searches. Let me show you the picture of her. So they denied her bail. They're saying that the charges against her are too horrific. You know, it's just too much to give her bail. So no more bail. I don't know when she'll be back into court. I will like look all that up and make sure that I put that on the community tab. Yeah, she owned a mansion for like 2 days. Yeah, and she's in a tremendous amount of debt. I mean, $500,000 just to her husband, which is so weird to me to have a debt with your husband. I'm old school, you know. I don't know. You just put your money together. But I guess me and Vincent have our separate accounts too, so I don't know. Yeah, so no bail for her. I don't know why they just cut off the court like that, though. They didn't. I was like, that's why I kept looking to see if maybe they would connect it like on, because sometimes, you know, they'll just give us a little bit, but they haven't said that. I haven't seen anything anyway. So, like I said, you know, her and Eric, they had 3 boys together. She decided to take the easy way out and get rid of him. And now look at her. She's going to be going to prison, it looks like. Her lawyer isn't very good at all. I don't think. I didn't think that her lawyer had, I mean, maybe there's something else, but, oh, did you? The rest of it was on KUTV. Let me see. I think I was following them actually on Twitter. Let me see if I can. There's that. I don't think that's where I found the picture of her. Let's go this way. I have like so many windows open. It's crazy. I should just start like, oopsie, following like all these things. Oh, that's because altogether it was 4 hours, 22 minutes. Okay, well, we'll just have to watch the rest of it next time. Because that was a long time, kind of. I didn't even realize that. Because I thought it had just started, like, because Court TV started it late. That's weird. Yeah, because she took money without his knowledge. That's probably what it is. That's probably what it is. Isn't that crazy? And then, so yeah, so they denied her bail. Let me see if I can, I wonder when she'll be going back into court. I don't know if we'll know that yet or not. Let me see if I can look it up real quick. I didn't realize that she was going to court this fast. That's why I was like, I gotta get on there live. Just says that she'll remain in jail. So, okay, so she's going to remain in jail for a little while longer. Now, we do have more cases coming up. We have Delphi is going to be, he's going to be going back to court. I forget what it's for. It's just like a status hearing. It's not opening statements or anything, because I'm trying to go for those. So as long as we can get some people like into the chat for all these cases, I will be more than happy to go and try to, get a spot, especially in the Delphi case. I can try to like, get over there. That's about 3.5 hours away from me. So that's like doable, I feel like. But we will probably do a live on like a couple of days. We'll probably do a couple of days, to get caught up on that case. Cause I know that it's been like 5 years since that case started. So, and if you guys don't know what the Delphi case is, it's the little girls, Abby and Libby, that went to the Monon High Bridge February 13th, just to go and hang out. They had a snow day. They wanted to go hang out, and they never came home. And so they finally have a suspect in custody, and we are hoping that all goes well. But I don't think that they would arrest just anybody. That was like a prelim. That's what I was thinking. Normally bail hearings, you're in, you're out. Like your lawyers will say a couple of words like, I think she should have bail, I think she shouldn't have bail, and then that's it. But the whole courtroom was full. It was full of people. I couldn't believe that. So if you guys haven't subscribed to the channel yet, don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon to be alerted to all content. That way, if I do come back on live tonight, you'll get that alert. I usually will do a live every day, or I do pre-recorded video, which I did one yesterday, and over Idaho Forward, I'm getting so much flack for that one with the Brett Kopaka. I was getting the comments. The comments were coming in hot. So if you see any bad comments, I just left them up there. We might just do a live on it. I was like, shoot, everybody's coming after me with these ones. But I will probably be back on tonight. If not, I'll be back on tomorrow. But I'm sure I'll be back on tonight, because we have a lot of stuff I want to cover. But you guys have a good day. Have the rest of a good Monday. I'm probably, if I do come back on, it'll probably be between 8:15 and 9:15, somewhere in that area. So I will see you guys all tonight. Bye, guys.